Growing up, I always knew where I stood in my family. I was the overlooked son, the one who couldn't seem to earn my parents' love or attention, especially when compared to my younger sister, Amy. At 28, I'm still grappling with the effects of that favoritism, which started when we were kids and only grew more evident as we got older. Amy, at 25, was the golden child. The signs were clear from the start. My childhood memories are filled with images of Amy's extravagant birthday parties, professional face painters, bouncy castles, petting zoos. Meanwhile, my 5th birthday was celebrated with a store-bought cake and a small family dinner. That became the pattern. As we grew, the divide between us deepened. Amy always had the newest toys, the trendiest clothes, and the lion's share of attention. When I saved up my allowance for months to buy a bike at age 10, she threw a tantrum because she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her patience, my parents simply bought her a bike, an even better one than mine. The disparity didn't stop at material things. My parents attended every one of Amy's school events, while I was often left on my own. I still remember the 4th grade play where I had the lead role. I had practiced tirelessly for weeks, but on the night of the performance, my parents showed up an hour late, missing my big scene because they were busy comforting Amy, who had a stomach ache. She was fine. Of course, that moment summed up my entire childhood, unnoticed, unheard. When it came to my academic achievements, they were always overlooked. I excelled in school, joining the math club, maintaining straight A's, even winning a regional science fair. But those accomplishments were barely acknowledged. Amy, on the other hand, struggled in school, but when she scored a B+ in her weakest subject, she was treated like a star. My parents threw her a celebratory dinner and bought her a new phone. High school brought more of the same. I juggled a 4.0 GPA, was editor of the school newspaper, and captain of the debate team. Amy, however, floated through high school with minimal effort, barely keeping a C average. Still, she was always the center of attention. When I was selected for a prestigious summer program at Harvard, I couldn't have been prouder. But when I shared the news at dinner, my dad's only reaction was to change the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. I had to find a ride to the airport, as my parents couldn't take me because they were attending her concert. The college application process was no different. I worked tirelessly, crafting essays, preparing for tests, and participating in extracurriculars. I received acceptance letters from several elite schools, including a sizable scholarship to my dream university. When I told my parents, their response was underwhelming. "That's nice, but don't let it go to your head," my dad said. "Just remember us when you're a big shot," my mother added. On the other hand, when Amy barely graduated from high school and decided not to pursue higher education, my parents praised her for defying social norms and knowing herself. They even bought her a car as a graduation gift. This persistent favoritism took a toll on me. I battled anxiety and depression for years, unsure of my worth. It wasn't until I started therapy in college that I realized my parents' behavior wasn't a reflection of my value. Slowly, I began to rebuild my self-esteem, learning to validate myself instead of waiting for their approval. Despite their lack of support, I built a successful life. By 27, I had a stable job in finance and even purchased my own home, accomplishments my parents barely acknowledged. And then came the inheritance. After my grandfather, a self-made businessman, passed away, the will was read. He had divided his estate equally between his children and grandchildren. I was surprised and grateful to learn that my share was $500,000, enough to secure my future, pay off my student loans, and possibly start my own business. I felt blessed by the unexpected windfall. However, my parents were not pleased. When they found out, they immediately pulled me aside to express their dissatisfaction. They felt it was unfair that I received the same amount as Amy. Amy, still living in our parents' basement and working part-time at a coffee shop, claimed she needed the money more because she was struggling. I was stunned but tried to stay calm. I explained that Grandpa's decision was final, and I wasn't going to change it. But my parents insisted. They pressured me to do the right thing and give Amy my entire share. When I refused, they turned on me, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. My dad reminded me of every favor he'd ever done for me, paying for my braces, buying school supplies, letting me live at home during college, as though these were extraordinary sacrifices, not basic parental duties. Conveniently, he ignored the car they bought Amy. the constant shopping sprees, and the fact that they were still financially supporting her at 25. The situation escalated when my dad, acting as the executor of the will, decided to take matters into his own hands. He announced that he would be reinterpreting Grandpa's wishes and giving Amy my entire share, claiming that if Grandpa had known about our unique situation, he would have wanted it that way. I was shattered. Not only was my father's behavior blatantly illegal, but it was also a crushing reminder of just how little my parents valued me. I calmly pointed out that Grandpa had always been fair to all his grandchildren, regardless of our personal circumstances, and that he would have never wanted anyone to alter his will. But my mother quickly accused me of dishonoring the deceased by suggesting that Grandpa's intentions could be anything other than what my father claimed. I reminded them of the times Grandpa had supported my academic and career goals, but they dismissed those memories, calling them misinterpretations. Instead, they argued that Grandpa had been worried about Amy's future and had privately expressed concerns. When I asked why he hadn't simply left his will reflecting that, they had no answers. Amy, awkward and quiet, didn't say much. She shrugged and muttered, "Mom and Dad know best." I tried talking to her privately, hoping she might help, but it was clear she wasn't going to challenge our parents. Feeling utterly betrayed and desperate, I turned to Grandpa's widow, my paternal grandmother, for advice. When she heard what was happening, her fury was palpable. She immediately told me that my parents had no right to change Grandpa's will and that this was the exact opposite of his wishes. Grandma sent me several documents that made everything crystal clear. Years ago, my parents had tried to convince Grandpa to leave everything to Amy. Grandpa had firmly rejected this, insisting that all his grandchildren be treated equally. In fact, he had added a clause to his will stating that anyone who tried to alter the distribution would forfeit their inheritance. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. When I revealed that Grandpa had rejected their attempt to manipulate his will, their faces drained of color. My dad stammered, trying to justify their actions by claiming they were just looking out for Amy, but I could see the guilt written all over him. Grandma wasted no time. She reached out to the other executor of the will, the family lawyer, and informed my dad's siblings. They were equally appalled by his actions, and together, they ensured that the will was executed exactly as Grandpa had intended. Though my parents were furious, they had no choice but to back down. Yet, their anger was misdirected. They accused me of betraying the family and going behind their backs instead of handling things privately. My mother cried, saying I had torn the family apart and deceived them. I responded simply, "I never expected anything from you anyway." Then, my dad made one final threat. He told me that if I accepted my inheritance, he would cut me out of their will completely and that I would no longer be welcome in their home. In a particularly cruel move, my mother claimed that accepting the inheritance proved I never truly loved them, that I was only interested in profiting from their deaths. This situation fractured the extended family. Some of my cousins were supportive, acknowledging the long-standing favoritism and respecting me for standing up for myself. Others believed I should have given in for the sake of family harmony. Fortunately, my dad's siblings were firmly on my side, though their relationship with my parents has been severely strained. Amy, ever the mediator, found herself caught in the middle. She privately confided in me that while she felt bad about everything and never asked for the money, she wasn't willing to defy our parents. She had been conditioned her whole life to rely on them and seek their approval. While I don't blame her entirely, a part of me still wishes she would stand up for me, just once. This whole ordeal has dredged up years of resentment. I remember every birthday I barely got to celebrate, every school event my parents missed, every achievement I had that went unnoticed in favor of Amy. This feels like the culmination of a lifetime of injustice. Despite everything, I'm standing my ground. I will accept my inheritance as Grandpa intended, and I will not be manipulated. The rift in the family remains, and my parents barely speak to me anymore. Family gatherings have become incredibly tense, and I even skipped our usual family dinner last month because I couldn't handle the cold stares and passive-aggressive comments. Still, despite the turmoil, I feel a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in my life, I'm asserting my worth and standing up to my parents. It's a terrifying yet liberating experience. That said, the emotional toll is exhausting. I haven't felt this much stress since my college days, and my anxiety has flared up again. I'm seriously considering returning to therapy to help me cope with everything. I wonder if I made the right choice by rejecting my parents' demands and accepting my inheritance. Should I have just given the money to Amy to keep the peace? As much as I'm tired of being the family scapegoat, I'm also terrified of losing my family completely. Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. Update, 6 months later. A lot has happened since my original post. I want to sincerely thank everyone for your support and advice. It really helped me stay strong throughout this ordeal. On the legal front, many of you advised me to consult a lawyer, and I took your advice. I spoke with an attorney, who confirmed that I had every right to my inheritance and that my father's actions were not only morally wrong but legally fraudulent. My attorney helped me document everything and prepare to take legal action if necessary. Thankfully, we didn't have to go to court. With the support of my dad's siblings, my grandmother, and her attorney, we were able to resolve the matter without litigation. I received my full inheritance, and the will was executed exactly as Grandpa intended. As a result of his attempt to manipulate the will, my father was removed as one of the executors. This was a long and stressful process, spanning several weeks. My parents fought tooth and nail, threatening legal action and engaging in tense meetings and furious phone calls. But in the end, the law was clear, and they had no choice but to back down. However, the fallout within the family hasn't ended. Initially, my parents doubled down, accusing me of being selfish and uncaring toward Amy. They tried to turn other family members against me, spreading lies that I had somehow manipulated Grandpa into leaving me money. Fortunately, most of the family saw through their lies. About a month after the will was finalized, things came to a head. At a family gathering, my aunt didn't invite my parents, but they showed up uninvited anyway. They caused a scene, shouting accusations that I had stolen from Amy and had turned Grandma against them. It was the most uncomfortable family event I've ever been a part of. My dad started saying I had ruined all the wonderful memories we had. My mother angrily threw an old photo album at my feet. The whole situation was awkward and incredibly painful. It took several relatives to step in and calm things down, convincing my parents to leave before things escalated further. But through it all, my grandmother turned out to be my most powerful ally. She shared so many stories of how Grandpa had always been proud of my achievements. She told me about his deep desire to make sure all his grandchildren had equal opportunities. Grandpa had even kept a scrapbook of my accomplishments, newspaper clippings of academic honors, copies of college acceptance letters, and the program from a university play my parents had been late to attend. Listening to Grandma speak about Grandpa's love and pride for me was a bittersweet experience. It was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Grandma didn't stop there, she took it a step further. She organized a family gathering, excluding my parents, where she laid out the history of my parents' favoritism, including events I had forgotten or never even knew about. Having someone finally acknowledge the years of unfair treatment I endured was incredibly validating. But, at the same time, it reopened old wounds, especially when it came to Amy. After much reflection, she came to me and apologized for not standing up for me earlier. She admitted that she had always known our parents' favoritism was wrong but had been too scared to confront it. We spent hours talking about our childhoods and how they had shaped us both in ways we didn't even fully understand before. Amy revealed that, despite being the favored child, it wasn't as perfect as it appeared. She had felt immense pressure to live up to our parents' expectations and, in many ways, was denied the chance to grow and learn independently. She shared stories of times when she had wanted to accomplish something on her own, but our parents had swooped in to handle everything, depriving her of the opportunity to succeed or fail on her own terms. That conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. We began rebuilding the sibling bond that had been shattered by our parents' favoritism. We started meeting regularly for coffee, encouraging one another through this difficult time. In a move that surprised everyone, Amy decided to use her inheritance to pay for her college tuition. She said watching me stand up for myself had inspired her to take control of her own life. After figuring out what she wanted to study, she enrolled in a nearby community college with plans to transfer to a 4-year university. My parents were taken aback. They had never expected Amy to break free from their control. Deep down, they knew their overprotectiveness had held her back, and now they were facing the consequences. Their response was mixed and evolved over time. At first, they lashed out at both of us. They tried to guilt Amy into quitting college and helping the family because, in their eyes, I had turned her against them. But when that tactic failed, they shifted their approach. After several discussions with Grandma and seeing the positive changes in Amy, My mother started to acknowledge how damaging their behavior had been. She took hesitant steps toward reconciliation, even starting therapy to address her issues. She reached out to apologize, admitting she had been unfair and asking for the chance to make things right. It's been slow going, and while I'm cautiously hopeful, I've made it clear that I'm maintaining strong boundaries. Unfortunately, my dad has been much less willing to take responsibility. He remains furious and sees himself as the victim in all of this. Since Amy chose to go to college, he's been distant from her and barely speaks to me at all. He has threatened to sell our childhood home if we don't come to our senses and forgive him. Although we're both standing firm, it's painful to see him distance himself from us like this. The dynamics with the extended family have shifted dramatically. I now live closer to my dad's siblings, who have been incredibly supportive. My grandmother has helped me understand the long-standing challenges they've had with my dad's behavior over the years, which has alleviated some of the loneliness I've felt in this fight. I've also developed stronger bonds with cousins who stood by me throughout everything. We've started a monthly gathering to catch up, free from the toxic dynamics of the older generation. As for me, I've been using my inheritance to secure my future. I paid off my college loans, which gave me a sense of financial freedom. Working with a financial advisor, I've built a diverse investment portfolio and set aside funds to possibly start my own company someday. I'm exploring the idea of opening a community center that offers affordable mental health services and financial literacy workshops. But the most meaningful way I've used my inheritance has been by investing in therapy for myself and funding therapy for Amy. Both of us are learning to set healthy boundaries with our parents, working through the emotional scars of growing up in a household dominated by favoritism and neglect. It's been a long road, but I already feel like I'm growing emotionally. This whole process has brought a lot of positive changes into my life. I now understand better how to set limits, stand up for myself, and heal from past wounds. Though I know I did the right thing, it hasn't been easy, and there are still difficult days, but I'm proud of myself for resisting guilt and pressure, and I'm at peace with my decisions. One of the most surprising outcomes has been a shift in my career direction. Navigating this family conflict and undergoing therapy has helped me realize my passion for helping others who are dealing with similar family dysfunctions. I'm now more motivated than ever to pursue a career where I can help people heal, grow, and overcome their own struggles. Right now, my focus is on supporting others who have experienced similar family dynamics. I'm seriously considering returning to school to specialize in helping adult children of emotionally immature parents and eventually working as a family therapist. In the meantime, I've been volunteering at a nearby youth facility, offering guidance to young people from difficult family backgrounds. Being able to provide the kind of encouragement and support I wish I had received as a child has been incredibly fulfilling. I'm even thinking about using part of my inheritance to create a scholarship fund for kids in similar situations, helping them access education and opportunities they might not otherwise have. My relationship with Amy continues to grow stronger. Once a month, we have a siblings day where we do something fun together, just the two of us. Last month, we went on a hiking and picnic trip, the most relaxed and connected we've felt since we were kids. Without our parents' influence, we're rebuilding our bond on our own terms, and it feels good. As for my parents, things remain complicated. My mom has been making an effort to mend our relationship. She's attending therapy consistently and has started acknowledging the damage caused by her favoritism. We've had a few one-on-one lunches where we've had open, honest, and sometimes difficult conversations about our past and what comes next. It's far from perfect, but I can see progress. My dad, however, is a different story. He refuses to acknowledge any wrongdoing, insisting that he hasn't done anything illegal and that Amy and I should be grateful. He avoids being in the same room as me, which has led him to miss several family gatherings. While it's painful, I've stopped trying to make him see things differently. Letting go of that need has been freeing. Through all of this, Grandma has been our unwavering source of strength. She continues to share stories about Grandpa, reminding us of how proud he would be of us for standing up for ourselves. She's always been a champion of fairness and understanding, and she remains an incredible mediator in family matters. This journey has taught me a lot about the true meaning of family. I've come to realize that sometimes, the family you choose can be more supportive than the one you were born into. Along with building a close-knit circle of friends who have been my rock, I've also grown closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me when things got tough. Setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care have become essential for me. I'm learning to say no to situations that compromise my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty for prioritizing my well-being. For so long, I was consumed by the need to gain my parents' approval, and in the process, I neglected my own interests and personal growth. That's changing now. To anyone facing similar struggles, I want you to know, you have every right to stand up for yourself, even if it causes controversy. Fair treatment is not too much to ask for. Family dynamics can be complicated, but you are not obligated to tolerate mistreatment. Seek therapy if needed. Surround yourself with supportive people, and don't hesitate to set boundaries. Your worth is not defined by how your family treats you, it's defined by who you are. I truly appreciate all the support and encouragement I've received throughout this journey. It has meant more to me than words can express. The road hasn't been easy, but I'm excited about the future and confident in myself in a way I haven't been in years. This new chapter in my life is just beginning, and I'm determined to break the cycle of favoritism and build healthy, loving relationships in my future family.